The rain pounded against the windshield like a relentless accusation as Alexander Thorne steered his sleek black Mercedes through the winding streets of the small coastal town he had once called home. It had been 5 years since he last set foot here, 5 years since the divorce papers were signed in a sterile lawyer's office, sealing the end of a love that had once burned brighter than the city lights he now chased. But tonight, as thunder cracked overhead and the wipers struggled to clear the blur, Alex felt the weight of those lost years pressing down on him like an invisible hand. He pulled up to the modest cottage on Elm Street, its faded blue shutters trembling in the storm, and for a moment, he hesitated, his fingers gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. What if she slammed the door in his face? What if the silence between them, born of betrayal and heartbreak, had hardened into something unbreakable? With a deep breath that did little to steady his racing heart, he stepped out into the downpour, the cold water soaking through his expensive coat as he approached the door, knowing that this visit could either mend the fragments of his shattered soul or shatter them forever. If this story of redemption and second chances resonates with you, and if you believe in the power of kindness to heal old wounds, please hit that like button, drop a comment below sharing your own thoughts on forgiveness, share this video with someone who needs a reminder of hope, and subscribe to Gentle Hearts for more tales that touch the soul. The house looked smaller than he remembered, its once vibrant garden now overgrown with weeds that choked the flowerbeds Emily had so lovingly tended. Alex raised his hand to knock, the sound echoing hollowly against the wooden door, but before his knuckles could connect a second time, it creaked open just a fraction. There she stood, Emily, her face pale and drawn under the dim porch light, her eyes widening in a mix of shock and something deeper, perhaps pain, perhaps resignation. She didn't say a word, she hadn't spoken to him since the day she walked out of their shared life, her voice silenced not just by anger but by the profound hurt that had rooted itself in her heart like an unyielding vine. Alex felt his throat tighten as memories flooded back, their whirlwind romance in college, where he was the ambitious business major and she the quiet artist with dreams of painting the world in colors he could never see. They had married young, full of promise, but as his startup took off, the late nights turned into absences, the board meetings into excuses, until Emily was left alone in their sprawling apartment, her canvases gathering dust while he chased success. The divorce had been her decision, a quiet unraveling that left him with a fortune but stripped him of the only person who had ever made him feel truly alive. Now, standing there drenched and vulnerable, he searched her face for any sign of the woman he had loved, but she merely stepped aside, allowing him entry without a greeting, her silence a wall thicker than any he had ever built in his corporate empire. Inside, the cottage was a stark contrast to the opulent penthouse Alex now called home in the city. The air smelled of fresh baked bread and faint lavender, remnants of Emily's attempts to create comfort in a world that had turned harsh. She led him to the living room without a backward glance, her movements deliberate and guarded, as if every step was a reminder of the distance between them. The room was sparsely furnished, a worn sofa, a bookshelf lined with dog-eared novels and art books, and on the mantel, a single framed photo of them from happier times, laughing on a beach with the sun setting behind them. Alex's heart ached at the sight. He had thought she would have burned every trace of him by now. He sat awkwardly on the edge of the couch, water dripping from his clothes onto the threadbare rug, while Emily perched on a chair across from him, her hands folded tightly in her lap, her gaze fixed on the floor. The silence stretched on, heavy and oppressive, broken only by the rhythmic patter of rain against the windows. Alex had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in his mind, apologies tumbling out, explanations for his failures, but now, faced with her unyielding quiet, words failed him. He knew her silence wasn't just pettiness, it was a shield, forged in the fires of abandonment when he prioritized deals over date nights, profits over promises. In the years since, he had built an empire, becoming a millionaire many times over through tech innovations that revolutionized industries, but each victory rang hollow, echoing in the empty spaces where her laughter used to fill his days. As the minutes ticked by, Alex felt the familiar surge of frustration bubbling up, the same impatience that had driven him to success but also driven her away. He wanted to shake her, to demand she speak, to yell that he had changed, but he bit back the urge, remembering the therapist's words from his solitary sessions, true change comes from listening, not commanding. Instead, he let the silence linger, allowing it to wash over him like the storm outside, forcing him to confront the man he had become. Emily's life in these 5 years had been a quiet battle, one he had pieced together through mutual friends' whispers. After the divorce, she had moved back to this town, taking a job as an art teacher at the local school, pouring her soul into nurturing young talents while her own dreams faded. There had been health scares, a bout with depression that left her bedridden for months, and more recently, whispers of financial struggles as the cottage's mortgage payments piled up, threatening to uproot her fragile stability. Alex had learned of it all too late, his pride keeping him from reaching out sooner. Now, sitting in her presence, he saw the toll etched in the fine lines around her eyes, the way her shoulders slumped under invisible burdens. The challenge for him was immense: how to bridge this chasm without forcing his way across. He shifted slightly, his hand brushing against the small velvet box in his pocket, a relic from their past that he had carried like a talisman, hoping it might be the key to unlocking her voice. The storm outside intensified, wind howling through the eaves like a lament for lost time, mirroring the turmoil in Alex's chest. He recalled their final argument, the one that had sealed their fate. It was over a missed anniversary, him stuck in a merger meeting while she waited alone at a candlelit table. Her tears that night had been silent too, streaming down her face as she packed her bags, her words reduced to a single note left on the kitchen counter: "I can't compete with your ambitions anymore." In the aftermath, Alex had thrown himself deeper into work, amassing wealth that bought him yachts and private jets but not peace. Loneliness had crept in slowly, a shadow that grew longer with each empty evening, until one day, reading an article about second chances, he realized his fortune meant nothing without someone to share it with. That epiphany had led him here, but the struggle was real. Facing her silence meant facing his own regrets, the what-ifs that haunted his sleepless nights. Emily, for her part, had rebuilt her life brick by brick, finding solace in her students' innocent joy, in the strokes of her brush on canvas during rare moments of inspiration. Yet, the scars remained: trust shattered, heart guarded, her voice withheld not out of spite but self-preservation. As Alex watched her, he noticed the subtle tremble in her hands, a vulnerability that pierced him deeper than any boardroom defeat. Slowly, tentatively, he began to speak, not with grand declarations but soft recollections, of their first date under the stars, of the way she used to hum while painting, filling their home with melody. She didn't respond, but her eyes flickered, a tiny crack in the armor, and for the first time, hope stirred in him like a faint dawn breaking through clouds. Hours passed in that dimly lit room, the conversation one-sided at first, Alex weaving tales of their shared past while Emily listened, her expression a mask of stoic endurance. He spoke of his successes not to boast but to confess, the mergers that had made headlines but left him hollow, the awards ceremonies where he stood alone on stages meant for celebration. The challenges he faced were internal battles, admitting his flaws, the ego that had blinded him to her needs, the fear that he was too late to make amends. As the night deepened, the rain easing into a gentle drizzle, Alex delved into the darker corners of his journey, the panic attacks in luxury hotels, the therapy sessions where he unraveled the threads of his ambition-fueled neglect. Emily's silence held, but her posture softened imperceptibly, her fingers unclenching as if the weight of years was beginning to lift. He described the moment that changed everything, a chance encounter with an old photo album in his attic, flipping through pages of their life together, realizing that true wealth lay in those captured smiles, not in bank balances. It was then he decided to return, not as the conquering hero but as a humbled man seeking forgiveness. The narrative built layer by layer, suspense coiling like a spring as Alex wondered if his words were reaching her at all, if the wall of quiet would ever crumble. Outside, the storm subsided, leaving a cleansed world glistening under streetlights, symbolic of the potential renewal inside. Emily shifted in her chair, her eyes meeting his for the briefest moment, a spark of the old connection flickering before vanishing again. The turning point came unexpectedly, not in a flood of words but in a simple, profound gesture that cut through the silence like a beam of light. Alex reached into his pocket, pulling out the velvet box with hands that trembled slightly from the emotion surging within him. He opened it slowly, revealing the delicate silver locket they had exchanged on their wedding day, hers engraved with his initials, a symbol of the bond they once vowed eternal. He had kept it all these years, a secret talisman against his loneliness, but now he placed it gently on the table between them, not as a gift but as a surrender. "This was always yours," he whispered, though the story unfolds without spoken words here, the action speaking volumes in the quiet room. Emily's eyes locked onto the locket, and for the first time in 5 years, a single tear traced down her cheek, her lips parting as if to speak but holding back. The gesture broke something inside her, the dam of resentment, the fortress of hurt, reminding her of the love that had preceded the pain. In that moment, the air shifted, charged with unspoken possibilities, as Alex watched her hand inch forward, hesitating before touching the cool metal. The struggle was evident in her eyes, a war between past wounds and present longing, but the locket's familiarity stirred memories long buried. Lazy Sundays in bed, shared dreams under midnight skies, the way he had once made her feel seen and cherished. As her fingers closed around the locket, Emily's silence finally shattered, not in a torrent but in a soft, halting whisper that grew stronger with each word. Though the narrative captures it through description rather than dialogue, she spoke of her own battles, the isolation after the divorce, the nights spent questioning if she had been enough, the slow reclaiming of her art that had become her lifeline. Alex listened, truly listened for perhaps the first time, his heart swelling with a mix of remorse and relief. The conversation flowed then, mending threads of their story, revealing how both had grown in the intervening years, he, learning humility in his solitude, she, discovering strength in her independence. Suspense gave way to catharsis, the emotional peak cresting as they acknowledged the love that had never fully died, merely hibernated under layers of hurt. By dawn, as the first rays of sun pierced the curtains, painting the room in golden hues, they sat closer, the locket now around her neck, a bridge to a tentative future. Alex didn't promise miracles, but his gesture had reopened the door to possibility, inspiring them both to envision a life where kindness and second chances could rewrite their ending. In the quiet aftermath, as Alex prepared to leave with a promise to return, Emily's eyes held a newfound warmth, her voice steady as she expressed gratitude for the gesture that had given her back a piece of herself. Their parting was bittersweet, laced with hope, leaving Alex driving away with a heart lighter than it had been in years, inspired to use his wealth not just for gain but for good, perhaps funding art programs in her town, a quiet way to honor their rekindled connection. The story of their reunion spread subtly through friends, a testament to how one act of vulnerability can heal deep divides, moving those who heard it to reflect on their own relationships. Emily, too, found her art flourishing anew, her canvases alive with colors that spoke of forgiveness and renewal, her silence transformed into a symphony of expression. If this tale of heartbreak turned to healing has touched your heart, stirred emotions you didn't expect, or reminded you of the beauty in second chances, please show your support by liking this video, sharing it with a loved one, and subscribing to Gentle Hearts for more stories that celebrate the human spirit. Before we end, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below with your favorite line from this story or how it made you feel, and let's keep the conversation going in the comments section.